Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the ARPneuro Show. Thanks for joining in. My name is Jake. I'm the ARPneuro trainer, and we have a wonderful show today. I'm super excited. It's going to be Wes Berg. He's a professional lacrosse player. I'll get to him in a minute. Before we do so, I'm going to first announce once again the one and only, the infamous, the Maverick, Matt Dell. Matt Dell, thanks for being in today. Good to see you once again.
Right out of the gates, I realized I screwed up. My name is saying Matt Dell and not Snoop Dogg. So I'm not going to kill tonight's Q&A with Wes, but
no, you're the real deal today.
I love it.
It's the real McCoy.
Yeah, but I've got people trying to find me, and if they accidentally clicked on the Zoom to jump on, now they know where I'm at somewhat. But
all your fans are gonna stalk you. Is that what you're saying?
Exactly. I don't know if they're fans or law enforcement, one of the two.
Bear with me 1 second here, Matt. I'll get you kicked off here.
Perfect. And, well, thanks for joining us, everyone. Wes, I can't wait to have Q&A with you. Very excited to kind of go through. As those that have been on this on our Q&A, I'll kind of go through a very brief overview of ARPneuro, who we are, so we can dive right into why everybody's joined and learn from Jake on some of the protocols that are being used for the PRS and the Achilles. And then more importantly, we can get right to Wes, who I can't wait to, fire up some questions and find out a little bit about Wes and not only his experience with professional lacrosse, but, how he found and came to find ARPneuro and, how it's helped his career. So a little background on ARPneuro. You can go to the next slide, Jake. The technology's been around for over 20 years. It's got a huge success rate. The company that developed the technology out of Minnesota really spent a majority of their time and energy working with the professional athletes. And so my old business partner, gentleman by the name of Chip Turner, had a severe wrist issue, went to a lot of specialists, and finally the president of NBC suggested that, hey, you should go check out this doctor in Chicago and try this ARP treatment, which he did. And he could not believe that he was out of pain after 3 sessions. And after 6, he was swinging a golf club, and he asked this doctor specifically, how is this not everywhere? And so that doctor set up a meeting with the founder, and he basically invested to partner with them and become a large distributor in the United States. And that's how ARPneuro was developed. And in a lot of ways, I think his philanthropy in this event or effort is really to try to bring this technology, not just to professional athletes like Wes, but really weekend warriors like myself. You can go to the next slide. So this technology, as you can see, there are so many professional athletes. If you've had a chance to go to our website, take a look at the athletes using ARP, and we've started grabbing some content from, NFL Today and all kinds of media outlets that have interviewed and have so many of these professional athletes talk about how it's extended their career. So I highly recommend you take a look at that. You can go to the next slide. I have a personal experience with it. This is my youngest son. He was a senior in high school, broke his tibia fibula, as you can see from the x-ray on the right side of the screen. And my old business partner suggested, hey, you should go have him do this ARP treatment. And he was a starting point guard as a junior. And he said, if he does 20 treatments, he'll be playing basketball. And this was late September. And I thought, there's no way this kid's going to play basketball. But I asked him if he wanted to do it. And he said, sure, he'd give it a run. And we were driving an hour to and from the treatments. And actually, that's him. Not only did he play the last 5 games of basketball season with a rod in his leg between his knee and his ankle, but they played him in the playoffs, which is a huge testimonial. I mean, I could not believe that he was able to do that with, the condition he was under. But, a lot of that, I can attribute 100% of it to ARPneuro. So you can go to the next slide. So, even in most recent, since, post-COVID, Logan University down in St. Louis, they had a VP of Innovation and Technology and a whole committee that was evaluating the ARPneuro, and they were blown away by it to the point where they're now taking that, and it's part of their curriculum for all their students. And they've opened up their own lab, their own clinic in St. Louis, dedicated a couple doctors, students, and they're treating patients. And what's interesting about the conversation I had with the VP of Innovation, he basically said, as they dove in and evaluated this technology, and they're doing even a deeper dive now, he said there's the one thing you can't argue is the outcomes. And, you know, that's kind of our slogan. And we've had so many, you know, just weekend warriors that have had success with outcomes of this technology that, you know, we've started putting those testimonials on our website as well. So if anybody's listening today that did go through the, you know, whether it's the RX or PRS, please, you know, share those stories with others. You can go to the next slide. So really what we're going to talk about is there's two technologies that we offer. We've got clinics that are licensed physicians that use the RX100. It's a class 2 medical device. And really, and then the PRS, which is an over-the-counter technology. It's the exact same technology. The only difference is the RX100 does 500 contractions per second, and the PRS does 245 contractions per second. And we'll go into more technical detail on that. But at the end of the day, the simplest way to understand that is when you contract your muscle, it's at 2 times per second. So if you understand you know, 500 to 245 contractions per second, what that's doing, it's really doing a whole lot with not only the nerves and the muscle. It's a neurological thing that is helping, you know, recover and improve. You can go to the next slide, because the technology, whether it's the RX or the PRS, really helps alleviate pain. It helps prevent injury, and it really accelerates the natural healing of soft tissues, increases range of motion, and we'll go into a lot of that, especially on the Achilles tonight, on, you know, how it can help rejuvenate an Achilles. So you can go to the next slide, Jake. So many have utilized this technology for accelerated recovery, performance, and strengths. And I think Wes has got a great story that probably utilized all 3 of these aspects of ARPneuro. So we'll get into that later with Wes and hear his story later today. You can go to the next slide. So, you know, here's some of the common conditions, and it's interesting as we share this with even some of our clinics across the country. It's amazing how some of these clinics, and if you haven't had a chance to look at our website, I think we're up to, is it about 60 clinics now, or is it more than 60 across the country?
Just over 60, yes.
Okay, so, you know, some of these just have utilized the ARPneuro technology and really started specializing. Some of our earlier Q&As were one of our clinics in Michigan that really spent a lot of time on concussions with student athletes. So there's a great Q&A on our website if you haven't heard that one. We've got one coming up that is going to be talking about how she treats the EDS. Jake, go ahead and you can pronounce that, since I'm not capable of it. It's too big of a word. Ehlers-Danlos syndrome. Oh man, that's impressive. Sorry to put you on the spot, but there's no way I could have pronounced that. But anyways, and we're going to do in the series of these Q&A, we want to kind of go through some of these common conditions, bring on guests like Wes and others, and just kind of talk through and get their experience. So you can go to the next slide. So really, I'll let Jake go into more detail on how it works, but it is a neurological electrical stimulation. And we'll talk a lot about that on the next slide. On a lot of people ask, well, is it like a STEM machine? And I've heard of STEM. How does that compare? You can go to the next slide, Jake. You know, this is a good comparison, and really there is no comparison, because, you know, the ARPRS is a direct current and it's a proprietary background wave versus the TENS machine, which is an alternating current. The contractions per second, huge. The blood flow feature is unbelievable. There was actually one of our last Q&As was one of the doctors that talked in great detail on the benefits of the blood flow. But really, this technology is intended for movement. It's intended to kind of re-educate the neurological muscles and systems so that we can you know, kind of get, you know, some of these areas and muscles that have stopped functioning and absorbing some of the absorptions that they were intended to do. The ARP will fire that back up, you know, alleviate pain in those areas, and then actually get them to function so that you're more flexible and get more of the the function of that particular area. You can go to the next slide. So it's all about the outcomes. There's over 500,000 people that have been treated with this. And if you've utilized it, we'd love to hear your story. As you can see on our website, the success stories of all the different areas. You can go to the next slide. Okay, so I tried to speed through that. If anybody has any questions throughout tonight's Q&A, please on the ask at any point, and Jake or myself or Wes, more than happy to answer that. Jake, I think I'll kind of turn it over to you, and that was as quick as I can do the overview.
That was a record, Matt. Well done, and yeah, I appreciate it. So let's just kind of briefly go over this really quickly, and just because we're essentially going to be on the subject anyway, because we're going to be talking to Wes about this particular issue that he dealt with. So it's going over Achilles. And just kind of a brief overview of the Achilles. It's essentially going down to the heel bone. It is the largest tendon in your body, goes up just above, just a little bit past the knee. Now, if you can see those two lines there, there's one line on the bottom here, just above the Achilles heel, and then probably 5 to 6 centimeters above that. That particular area is sort of the major component that tends to break down. Now, there are other issues with the Achilles heel, but that one in particular is usually the most common. So I want to go over a couple of those before we kind of get into a little more depth of this. The first one's probably the most well known, is just the tendonitis portion. Tendonitis is not as common probably as people think. I think it mostly affects the younger person. Oftentimes somebody who's an athlete will deal with this. It tends to just be inflammation. A lot of times this can be, cured with just a little bit of rest, getting inflammation out of that area, 2 or 3 days. A lot of times they can get through it and get back onto the field and feel better. The more common one is tendinosis. Tendinosis is over the years, in particular for people in the ages of 30 plus, you start to get degeneration. There's going to be tiny tears in that location, often again, like I mentioned, that particular breakdown point. And those tears are just due to overuse. With that overuse, you're not getting a lot of blood flow in that particular area. That's just the way that the Achilles heel works. It isn't designed to get a lot of blood flow into that area. So that particular component is where our technology is going to come into being very, very effective, and I'll touch on that. But here's just kind of a diagram of what usually is the cause. So if you look at this in the front portion, you can see that green area. That's the tibialis anterior. That muscle is used for plantar flexion, or the dorsiflexion. It's kind of lifting the foot, as you can see here. The other part is the gastroc, or the calf muscle. That's the plantar, or almost like you're pressing down on the gas pedal. Those two particular movements, as you go in, whether it's sports, any type of activity, it's often this overuse that will cause the Achilles to break down and usually cause that tendonitis or tendinosis. So I want to give a brief sort of brushstroke of what you can do if you're currently using this technology, or certain pad placements that you can just very simply put these pads and see a lot of results here. So in this particular diagram to the right, you can see right on the calf muscle, the gastroc, I have the black pad there just going horizontally right on the center belly of the gastroc. And then the tibialis anterior, we're using the red pad. You can certainly switch the two of those, but for this particular, just demo purposes, we're placing both of these. And one of the things about this technology that makes it so effective is using this particular current with movement. So as you place the pads in these particular locations, we recommend that you do something like a calf raise. You can even do step ups, something that goes to that movement that I touched on. So that plantar and dorsiflexion. And with these pads, as you're increasing that output power, that's going to represent that force. But the beauty of it, as Matt talked about, is when your body does those movements of plantar and dorsiflexion, it's only doing it 2 times per second. Now with these pads anchored to this location at these often breakdown points, you're in a position where you're getting 245 times per second using the PRS, which makes it a lot more effective. With that movement, here's one that we're very familiar with. If you followed us for the last several weeks, you're very familiar at this point with the foot bath. Now, essentially, we have this on our website, so if you want to look at this video, I'm not going to play it now, but you can check it out at ARPneuro.com, how to use a PRS, and you're going to see a continuous, long-growing and growing library. One of these in particular is the foot bath. Very simple pad placement, clamshell, that's that rubber disc looking pad with a sponge on the bottom, and the red pad, the sticky pad, is going to be in the center portion of the quad. And essentially all that's doing, that black current is running upward to the red pad. So if you're talking about any type of inflammation, which I addressed, this is a very good protocol to remove that inflammation, but also getting blood flow into that area and contracting those dormant muscles that weren't absorbing force, and you can get to fire up to start working the way they're supposed to. The last portion is, we actually touched on this last week with Dr. DeBono, and he went into a deep dive with his research as he continues on with it. And you can check that out. You can check that portion out on the science tab on our website. Once again, you can see a lot of the research he's been doing with blood flow. But as you can see here on this particular diagram, I have a real simple pad placement. We just call it sandwiching that area. So if you look at the Achilles here, I just have a black on the inside, red on the outside or lateral area, and we're just hitting that main pulse suspend, so that little green circle, and then we want to max that out. The reason for that is you want that full power. You're not going to feel the contractions, but again, remember in the beginning when I mentioned that the Achilles heel doesn't generate a lot of blood flow naturally into that area. So this machine is going to help get more blood flow into that area, and thus, kind of increasing that healing process, certainly helping your recovery. If you're an athlete, it's going to get you back on the field or the court or whatever sport you're doing a lot quicker than what you would if you just did it naturally. So it's those three components. I do recommend 20 to 30 minutes between those, the movement being the first one. The second one, a little bit more passive, but it's still going to be blood flow removing inflammation, and that's the foot bath. The water does a great magnifier with that as well. And of course, this last portion, the most passive, but perhaps very effective, because you can leave this on a long time, but at least a minimum of 20 to 30 minutes of this as well. And if you are suffering from some sort of Achilles pain, this is something you're going to see a lot of results. And I certainly cannot wait to talk about this, with our guest that's coming up. Before we get there, I just want to say, if you do have any questions regarding this, or perhaps any protocols you don't see on the website, just send us an email, info@arpneuro.com. And again, that list will continue to grow. And hopefully, whatever it is you're suffering, this machine, you'll see a lot of benefits with that. But without further ado, let's get to the good stuff. I know Matt is excited to talk to this individual. I'm excited to hear a lot of his story, but let's go into it a little bit. First off, he's a professional lacrosse player, and he plays for the San Diego Seals in the National Lacrosse League, or the NLL, and also the Redwoods Lacrosse Club in the Premier Lacrosse League, or PLL. He was in the running for the NLL League MVP in 2023, and he played college lacrosse in the University of Denver, where he helped the team win in the 2015 NCAA Division I Men's Lacrosse Championship. And if you watched him play last week, you'll see why. He's a rock star. It's one of the reasons we're excited to have him. Now, recently, he faced a problem with his Achilles tendon that was getting worse every season. Now, he was recommended to have surgery. However, he sought out a less invasive way to recover. With that, he was able to discover our technology, the ARPneuro Therapy, and this aided in his recovery. Since then, he's used the technology for some things such as the concussion treatment, for a hamstring injury, as well as hip issues, and also to help push the boundaries of his athletic potential. So everyone, the reason why everyone is here, of course, please give a warm welcome for our guest and professional lacrosse player, Wes Berg. Wes, thank you for being with us today, and it's a pleasure to have you with us.
Yeah,
thanks for having me on, Jake. Thanks,
Good.
guys. Excited to be on here.
Before we even dive into this neuro stuff, I want to understand, what lottery had you win to go to college in Denver and now living in San Diego? I mean,
yeah. Well,
my two favorite areas of the country. As a matter of fact, I've got a brother that lives out in San Diego, and the only time he invites me is when he knows I've got conflicts. I think a good friend of mine they call that a Peterson. So he only invites me out when he knows I can't come out. So I love San Diego. I love Denver. First of all, please share, a little background on who you are, and love to hear your story, where you're from, and how you got involved with lacrosse.
Yeah, oh yeah, for sure. Well, first of all, very, very lucky to have escaped some of the cold winters in Vancouver and all the rain that we get there. So that's where I'm from originally. It's just outside of Vancouver, and then I was fortunate enough to get a scholarship to go to University of Denver and playing professionally after for a little while in Calgary, which another cold place. Winters sometimes below 30 and 40 below, but being in San Diego now, I can golf all year round, so I'm pretty spoiled with that.
Oh, that's great. So how did you get out of Canada with a little stick, versus a hockey stick? That's intriguing to me.
Yeah, that's right. Well, my dad grew up playing hockey, and lacrosse was more of just kind of a summer sport to stay in shape and work on hand coordination and things like that. And it's grown quite a bit in Canada and especially in the United States, where the professional leagues have kind of spread all over North America, and you see colleges like even Utah and some of these ones on the West Coast that are getting Division I programs, whereas traditionally it's always been kind of your North Carolinas and Syracuse, and showing how much it's spread with when we won the championship with Denver in 2015. That was the first time a college has won that didn't border the Atlantic Ocean. So it's pretty cool to see where the games come. And I still play a lot of hockey whenever I go home. My family's originally from Prince George, British Columbia, which is about 10 hours north of Vancouver. So some cold winters there, but whenever I go there for Christmas, I play a lot of pond hockey with my brother and dad and my cousins. So I still get the hockey stick in the hand quite a bit.
Oh, that's awesome. So, tell me, I'm naive to the whole lacrosse game. It came out a little after my world of football, baseball, and basketball. But tell me a little about the professional. How many teams are they? How long has it been? How long it's been going? I'm just curious.
Yeah. So the NLL, National Lacrosse League, has been around for even since the 1970s. It's kind of even similar to the outdoor league, which was originally the MLL, or Major League Lacrosse. It went into the PLL. So the NLL has kind of had a couple different leagues merge and change, and so we've had teams all over the place and a little bit of expanding and contracting. But over the last 10 years, we've had quite a bit of expansion in the National Lacrosse League, the indoor league. We have a team now in Dallas, Las Vegas recently got a team. This was their inaugural year, so they have Joe Tsai and Wayne Gretzky, a big name in hockey, as you know, and Dustin Johnson, who's his son-in-law, big name in golf, that own the team, which is pretty cool. And we've got teams all the way from Halifax, in the eastern part of Canada, to Vancouver, and then all the way down to San Diego, and even Georgia on the other side of the U.S. So it kind of spreads all the way across North America, and it's growing quite a bit. It's not on that level of basketball or hockey or anything like that. There's still a lot of growth to be had, but it's been pretty cool to be in the league for quite some time and see it grow.
Yeah, that's got to be exciting. Especially, seeing the popularity of lacrosse is incredible for me personally, and just to see that, what it's done to the youth of, even the Midwest. I got to ask, who did you beat in the finals from Denver? Please tell me it's got to be an East Coast,
That's
team
right.
that just.
We beat Maryland, who's
Okay.
pretty big powerhouse in the NCAA. So they've won quite a few national championships, and I think they went to the finals like 5 or 6 years straight at that time. So that was a big upset for us. And then Notre Dame just most recently won, but we beat them in overtime in the semis. So I think if anybody put any money on us at the beginning of the year, they'd be pretty doing pretty well now, because it was kind of a shot in the dark with a team on the in the western part of the U.S. or even get close to a championship like that.
Yeah, I mean, the East Coast, they had they owned lacrosse, and then all of a sudden you start getting schools like Denver competing now you got kids probably from all over the U.S. so excited about lacrosse and playing, and I mean, it's just absolutely changing the landscape of how youth sports are. With that, I'd love to find out, because my kids played late, and the part they loved were two things. Number one, T-ball, or baseball, they were picking daisies in the outfield, and they saw an opportunity to take a big stick and a ball that is rock solid and go bang and hit other kids with sticks and get some guy that was crazy enough to sit in goal with this big hard ball. So, the injury portion of it is, unbelievable. So I'd love to hear from you about, how violent really the game has come with checking and the stick and injuries.
Oh, for sure. And yeah, the goalies are that's probably the craziest position in the world for any sport if you're playing field lacrosse, because you don't have any pads on and guys are shooting as hard as they possibly can. So it's pretty wild. But
I got to interrupt you for a second, because we may have a lot of people on today. And if you've never felt a lacrosse ball, I mean, how heavy is that ball?
Yeah, it's for those who played hockey, it's basically the same size as a hockey puck, or it's even a little more dense, I think. But the rubber's got a little bit of give on it, so it's not quite as hard as a hockey puck, but it hurts just as much.
Well, one thing I want to say about the lacrosse ball is I used to use it because of its density to get out trigger points. So I would use almost like a foam roller because it got more depth. And I mean, when I saw you guys throw this thing around the other day, I was like, you get hit in the face with that, or just the arm, it's going to break something.
Yep. Yeah. My buddy, when we were playing around, I was behind the net and he hit me right in the face and broke my nose with it. So that was, I've had a good experience with that. And then, you get, it's a pretty rough sport, especially the indoor version, which is, the Canadian version. It's very similar to hockey. There's not a lot of rules, so you can get hit into the boards, you can cross check, you can sometimes I don't know what a penalty is, so I've had quite a few injuries with that. And then the field lacrosse is a bit more, I'd say, structured and a little more rules on it, but then you've got guys with 6-foot sticks that can wind up and whack you as hard as you can, so they get you get some broken fingers and you get a lot of bumps and bruises that way too.
I think we just got an insight to who you really are. I mean, you love the violence. I saw you light up. And now I know how you got out of Canada with a lacrosse stick and not a hockey stick, first of all.
That's right.
So that being said, I mean, when did you kind of go all in with lacrosse? And I'd love to hear about kind of that early time and any injuries that you kind of had throughout that process, even in college.
Yeah. So I got introduced to the game. My dad played it quite a bit when we moved to Coquitlam, just outside of Vancouver. That was a huge hotbed for indoor lacrosse. And my older brother played, so I kind of played ever since I could walk. And then when I was in high school, I played on the junior A team. So you can play. It was mostly college kids, but you can play up. And we ended up winning the Canadian national championship. So I was still in high school and I was playing hockey, and I got offered a scholarship to Denver University through that. So that's kind of what, switched gears from playing hockey. And I thought, if I can get, my education paid for and play in Denver, that'd be pretty cool. And I had a friend, Mark Matthews, who was going to Denver University at the time. And actually a couple of buddies that ended up going to play hockey there. So it was a big hockey school as well. And that's kind of forced my hand, so I couldn't play hockey anymore. But it was worth it. And the indoor, again, it's pretty rough. So junior, I had quite a bit of injuries. I remember separating my shoulder when I was like 16 or so, and that never seemed to get much better because you just keep banging it. And then my second to last year of junior A, I broke my talus and had to have the surgery on that. And that was one of the things I think that contributed to my Achilles injury on the other side, because it was just overcompensating for, years and years of running with a foot, the right foot, that didn't really have much mobility or anything going on with it. So it was one of those kind of just effects where so many injuries in a row, the body started falling apart. So, being able to have a program like this with the ARP where I can get a lot of blood flow in there and I can help break up some of that scar tissue that I've, has built up over the years has been great because again, you neglect a few of these things too. And when you have so many injuries and you're not playing a sport like football or basketball where you have, a sports medicine program and doctors checking in on you all the time, sometimes you just seem to fall apart. So I've learned a lot, kind of to do some maintenance and taking care of myself, but having this technology has been huge to, help me prolong the career a little bit. And everybody that I talked to about my Achilles was the only thing you can really do to fix it is the surgery. And this, this has been awesome because playing in the World Championships this summer, I'd be coming off of probably a surgery where you never know if you get picked for that team or what might happen. But it's been, it's been great being able to run on it. I played every single game this season with the Seals and just did a training camp for about 10 days and played a game and feeling good coming into this World Championship starting up in June in San Diego. I'm playing on Team Canada, so you guys will probably be cheering.
Oh wait! Whoa!
I don't have my American
we thank you for
citizenship
your
yet.
participation. We're gonna have to cut this short. Nobody told me this is Team Canada. I mean,
that's right.
Holy cow! I'm just kidding. So, out of curiosity, Wes, I've got a million questions, and I keep looking at the clock, but. I mean, how did you discover ARPneuro? I mean, I'd love to hear that.
Yeah, so you guys know working with Colin Strange, he's just been a buddy of mine who's been out. Lacrosse world's a pretty small world, and I've mostly known him for just having some beers, kind of at the local bars in San Diego. And he went to Marquette, who actually played against Denver quite a bit, and we'd kind of crossed paths before, and then. During the pandemic, he brought, just kind of talked to me about bringing the ARP in and checking it out with the Seals. And I tried it out, and we did kind of the whole program where, I again with my back being stiff and having hip issues and all these kind of nagging injuries and old injuries that had built up. It did this program, and I felt unbelievable. And we eventually got the team to buy one of the units, and then I was, whenever I'd go and hang out with him, I just kept, bothering him about my Achilles issues, and he'd put me through the kind of the I call it the waterboarding one, where you put your foot in there and you're electrocuting at the foot bath, and so I would do that one, and it's just kind of nothing like I'd ever tried before. I'd had one of the TENS unit, which. It's, for 20 minutes, it kind of gets rid of some pain and stuff like that. But I'd never actually felt the effect of the next day where my calf would be sore with some of the exercises, but I didn't have any pain in that actual, Achilles or part where it seemed like all the swelling and all the inflammation was that had kind of gone away. And it was more of like I did a muscle workout, like I'd done a bunch of calf raises without having the pain in the original spot. So I was pretty fortunate to be able to work with him, and then it was good timing again because in the summer, I'd been in to see a surgeon and a few different people, and they said this is kind of your only option to deal with something right now, and that's it would have been. I think they said it's like 4 months in a boot and then another 2 months recovery, so almost half the year, which I would have missed. Almost half the season in the NLL dealing with the recovery. So I was ecstatic when I, tried this and kind of put a recovery program on. And, there's a lot of travel in the NLL. I talked about Halifax having a team all the way to Vancouver. So sometimes you're on these 10-hour, flights, and my foot would just blow up like a balloon because you get all the restriction for you're not moving or walking or doing anything, and being able to have the PRS and just kind of put it on and do the blood, even the blood circulation one has been awesome. And I can actually walk off the plane. I'm not in a wheelchair, getting taken off the tarmac.
Yeah, that's got to be a hard one to convince the coaches to start you when they're bringing in the wheelchair because you got on the plane early and off. I mean, but that's great. I mean, we've heard that from so many people. I mean, I even had a buddy that had stayed with me, knee issue, and literally used the PRS 20 minutes and blood flow. next day he was able to walk 18 holes of golf, couldn't believe it, went online, bought one, and now he's using it. The family's using it. And there's so many of those stories on our website from professional athletes. I mean, Lane Johnson, one of the best NFL linemen, there was an article in the Philadelphia newspaper, and he swears, I mean, he had the same, he had a torn groin, and there's no way he was going to be able to play during the playoffs this past Super Bowl run. And he used the ARP treatment and was able to get through the playoffs and even the Super Bowl, because as you know, it's debilitating. I mean, we have a clinic even down in Miami that treats and trains with a lot of professional athletes. Now these orthopedic guys that, unfortunately, if they do have to do surgery, they're not even getting any of their, these pro athletes with anybody that does not have the ARP treatment for quicker recovery. So I get it. The PRS is phenomenal, especially if you travel. I guess, how do you keep it out of the hand of your teammates that now all want it? I mean, do you hide that under the blanket in the airplane, or how do you do that?
Yeah, well, I was laughing at that because actually the Seals, they bought one, so that's kind of a hot commodity, especially when you get to the tail end of the season and guys got nagging injuries. But my roommate always, this thing's got a good battery life on it, and then sometimes if I leave it in the living room and I go to use it and there's 20 minutes and it's dead, so I know he's been sitting on the couch with his knee problems and whatever else, and he's been using it all day, which is it's great to see. And Colin and I joke all the time because I help run a youth program here in San Diego, and a lot of times kids that'll have injuries or they'll come back from an ACL surgery and their parents are looking at an option, they use it, and then their parents are the ones that end up stealing it from them, and they've got whether it's arthritis or they have an old injury or a beer league injury or something like that, then they ended up using it more than the kids because it works so well.
Oh, it's unbelievable. I mean, I've seen it firsthand, and as you have, I mean, I love it when we get these orders on the website for the PRS. Now, most of these major league baseball teams, they have the technology kind of similar to your program. They have the PRSs, but a lot of these players now that are making, unbelievable. Now we're getting orders, on our website from those professional athletes because they don't want to wait or get in the queue for the PRS on the flights. They just buy it themselves. So, we're starting to see that firsthand, even though they have access to it, just because it's such a powerful tool. So I mean, so that's how you kind of discovered it. I'd love to find out. It sounds like Colin kind of walked you through some of the protocols, on the Achilles in the back. Jake, do you have any questions on the protocol side of it, or?
I actually do. I was just curious, Wes. You mentioned foot bath. What were some of the other pad placements and movements that you saw to be the most successful for the Achilles?
A lot of it kind of just placing it on the calves where I had like a rehab program where the more you can strengthen the calves, the more stress it takes off of the Achilles. But I found half the time you do, these exercises and then I've got to run or sprint the next day. Well, it's a lot of stress right on that heel that they have the issue on and right above on the Achilles. And the cool thing about, the ARP here is that you can get all of that stress without doing any weight bearing on it. So you can do kind of a body weight, but if you've got the pads on, both sides of your gastro or the soleus there, it feels like you're lifting, 200-300 pounds. And the next day your calf is so sore, you feel like you did, even if you only did maybe 4 or 5 sets of 10 or something like that, you feel like you did, triple the workout because it's, all those constrictions. And again, I don't know the whole science behind it. Colin explains a lot to me, but I joke, even sometimes when you just put them on your calves and you put it up at a really, high intensity level, you feel like you did about 1,000 calf raises the next day, and it's a hell of a workout. And we joke, it's, you can almost go to the gym, the lazy man's gym, and you can sit on the couch and the next day you're sore because you can put it on, whether it's your shoulders or your pecs or something like that. You feel like you did the bench press or you did a whole bunch of shoulder, exercises for an hour, even though you didn't move at all. But for me, again, I do so much running, and I find that's puts a lot of stress on the Achilles already. So to be able to have it help with kind of my rehab program, and be able to get the calf strengthened without, doing much of stress on the Achilles has been pretty cool.
Yeah, it's a good point, because I can certainly relate to how sore it can make your calves. But you also did mention you placed it in other areas of your body. Do you think that had any benefit? Especially being the athlete that you are and the level that you compete. Compared to lifting weights, did you see any help with that, because it kind of took some pressure off the joints?
Yeah, well, I love the I had using the columns kind of RX 100 there, where you have the more of the 4 pads on it, so you can do it on your quads or your glutes even. And during the season, the last thing, especially when you turn 30 like I have, the last thing you're doing is trying to squat 400 or 500 pounds like you would in college, because risking a back injury or screwing up your hips or anything like that to try to lift a couple extra 100 pounds is not very it's kind of counterproductive. So you can, when you put them on your thighs, and you get all that you're not having as much weight bearing on your back or your spine or anything like that. And it feels like you can just put the bar with 150 pounds on, and when you try to squat, it feels like you're squatting 300 or 400 pounds. You're just kind of getting that same workout without putting yourself at risk. And again, I can't afford a back injury or anything like that, and being able to get a good workout like that is pretty cool. With even if you're right now traveling, I don't have a huge gym at my disposal, so being able to use the PRS and kind of get a good workout like that without putting a ton of weight on either, even if you have knee injuries or something, squats and all that kind of stuff is a great exercise. But if you can get injured doing that when you're doing heavy weights. So it's pretty cool to have a system that it makes it kind of tricks your body into feeling like you're lifting that kind of weight without the dangers of it.
Yeah, we've got actually a professional bodybuilder who I believe is scheduled for one of the Q&As coming up, and she swears by it. I mean, because she can get the definition and the workout without putting that heavy lifting on her joints, and she's going to be coming up on a future Q&A, which is. And then Jake, I mean, there's a whole subculture of these Jake wannabes, because Jake, I love to. I mean, obviously, Jake is he went an entire year. I don't know if you heard this, Wes. He went an entire year, didn't lift a weight, and just he wanted to see what the outcome was with just strictly using ARPneuro. And what was it, Jake? You gained like 3.5 pounds of muscle.
Yeah, it was very interesting, because my goal was to just see if I could maintain my strength, and I did it for 365 days, specifically just the RX and PRS. I kind of used both of them, and one of the major things I noticed immediately was just taking pressure off my joints. So I used to deal with tennis elbow and golfer's elbow, both in particular, whether it was climbing or whatever it was on some of the hobbies I did in the past. Based on keeping pressure off of that joint, that went away, and it has yet to come back, just for that one alone. But the pull went up a good 5%. Anything back related just blew me away. I almost didn't believe, how well I was able to respond and how good I felt. Even the press, and I thought for sure my press would have dropped just because of the confidence of having pressure on my joints. But the press was able to maintain, and as I got into the workout routine after that first year, I noticed the strength was actually there. And the biggest portion of that was my body fat dropped. I tried to maintain as much of the calories as I did before that, the same type of nutrition. And I think the response of just having that 500 contractions or 245 contractions per second, just flaring up the muscles, that eventually paid off, and the blood flow kept me healthy for the entire year. So that 1 year was very surprising to me, especially my background being a strength coach. It was very difficult for me to give up the weights.
Yeah, it's amazing. I remember the first time Colin put me on the machine. I was thinking, at a certain point, I'm like, if you don't know what's going on, and he put it up pretty high, and I'm it almost hurts, and then you get used to it. But I could barely even do one squat, and then he would turn it up, and you could get to the point where you're doing 10 or 20 where you get used to it. But the next day I remember thinking it felt like I had done a whole workout with lunges and squats with really, really heavy weight, but there's no pressure on your joints. It's just the muscles that kind of take all the pain.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah, I saw that firsthand. I mean, the doctors that did the surgery for my son with the rod and basically wanted him in a boot, and he couldn't put any pressure on it. And we go into this ARP, and he did, 20-minute RX session, just literally walking, across the room. And he comes out of that and he is dripping sweat like crazy. And I'm thinking, what's the deal? You got these little pads on, you're just walking around the room. And he came out of there and says, Dad, this is intense, incredible. It doesn't hurt. And it's that sense of, as you know, as an athlete, he knew it was working. He could feel it right out of the gates, and he had no issues coming back and grinding through that. And, I'm blown away that when you watch some of these professional athletes and obviously how quick they can come back from injury. I always knew there was a secret bullet, and now I understand what it is, which is this ARP. So, great. On the workout side, I will have to plug Jake a little bit, because there is this whole subculture of ARPneuro. I don't quite understand it. I'm a dinosaur, but he's got these whole YouTube channels for workouts, specifically using the PRS, and that library and the participants in that world continue to grow. Jake, Wes, have you heard that? Have you seen that, side of this, the PRS side?
Yeah, well, it's funny because you talk to guys and it's like, I could go to the gym, or is this thing going to give me abs? Like, it's something you put on. And the joke is, if you try it out, the next day you're going to be sore, like you did a bunch of sit-ups. I haven't tried the full workout with doing like a full body one, but I know a lot of times like I'll put it on, and it's been a long day, and I'll put it on my calves on something like that, and I'll wake up and I forgot that I left it on. And I remember calling the next day, and I was like, I don't know if you can overdo it, but I could barely even walk down the stairs. And I go, did I do something here? Because I must have had it on for an hour. And it felt like I'd run a marathon almost.
Yeah, I was just about to say that you probably did run a marathon.
Yeah.
And you felt the effects in a good way, not a
right,
that sore,
right.
like, what happened? I thought I was just sitting on the couch. Now you've got to do this, and Jake, maybe we invite him back for a future Q&A. Yeah. But so your goal, Wes, is okay. You said that you've had a few beers with Colin. First of all, I hope he pays and picks up a tab every once in a while. You got to wear the PRS just on your abs while you're out drinking beer, because if that works, then I'm signing up for these exercises. The beer part I'm good at, but the ab part I don't know. But just
counterbalances it. You can have as many beers as you want, I guess.
Yeah, I guess if you wake up and you've done an unbelievable core workout, there's something to be said for that. We might see the PRS in every bar, in Lincoln Park or in San Diego.
I just want to say, Matt, as a strength coach, I do not endorse this part of it.
I hear you. Touche. Well, good stuff. Well, I'm intrigued so much by, how you've utilized this technology. Did you have anything like this when you were in college? Because we're now just starting to get to some of these universities, and it's amazing how some of these programs, this is available in the professional level, but we're just starting now to get some great success and traction with the collegiate athletes.
Yeah, no, we had, I remember when the NerveOTX pants came out, and that was like the ground-breaking technology, where now you see everybody that has those. And I think they help too, if your feet get inflamed and stuff like that, but I don't know if it's even close to anything on this level. You had kind of the ice and stim, which everybody thought was like, all right, it's kind of a cookie cutter way to fix things, and the ultrasound, which I'm sure does some stuff, but I've never had anything with results like this that it's sometimes even when you just tweak your back, or you get hit from behind, or you sleep on your neck funny, it's something that if I'm driving to work in the morning or doing anything, even coaching, I'll put it on where I kind of have a knot or something in the back, and it's almost like it gets rid of it, which is crazy for kind of nagging things like that. And then again, for big injuries like this Achilles issue and the surgery I had on my my right foot. Putting it on there and getting some of the scar tissue out has been pretty unbelievable.
Oh, that's awesome. That is great.
Wes, I had a military buddy just text me, and he is asking me, what sport from your experience is more violent, hockey or lacrosse?
I think
Great
indoor
question.
lacrosse. It is a great question. I think indoor lacrosse is probably the most violent. I mean, maybe hockey in the 70s was, and playing lacrosse pretty similar, because they used to have the wood sticks and they'd be whacking each other, and they had no face masks, so you could take somebody's teeth out or nose, and there's a lot more fights back then. But the fighting in lacrosse and the indoor lacrosse is pretty scary, because it's kind of like a street fight, whereas hockey you have to balance a bit more. So I'd say they're pretty close between hockey and lacrosse, and the indoor lacrosse. It's probably a tie, but I don't know. Football. When you watch football and you look at the size of those athletes, I've never had a 300-pound mutant running at me with trying to put the crown of their helmet through my head. So I think some of those injuries are probably pretty scary. But in terms of cuts and bruises and the violence factor, I probably have to give it to lacrosse, with hockey probably right on that level too.
Well, and what I've noticed is, even the outdoor was super violent from what I've noticed. I think I'm becoming addicted just by watching that. But you also don't have a 350-pound lineman swinging a 6-foot stick at your face. And I couldn't believe how you guys got away with just like literally hitting each other with it.
Yeah. I mean, it's playing offense is sometimes I wish I was on the other side of it. You usually get a lot more pain inflicted on you than giving it out. But again, it's better than being a goalie, because you saw that game last weekend, and those guys, they've got a helmet on, gloves, a chest protector, and that's it. And the ball's going 100 miles an hour at them. So we had a goalie at Denver, and I think he must have broke his thumb 4 times in 1 year, but he broke his thumb, and then a week later he broke the other thumb. So he couldn't even hold his stick after.
It's sanity. Now, I'm going to have to debate, because, I was a season ticket holder for the Blackhawks back in the old stadium, and, the Hawks versus the Red Wings and some of those fights. I mean, they knew who they were fighting before. That was pre-face guards and all that stuff. That was crazy. So.
Oh yeah. I remember. I still watch some of the highlights of the Broad Street Bullies of the Philly in the 70s, and you watch some of those games, and guys are chopping each other over the head with sticks, and it's mayhem.
Yeah, on that same line, conditioning, I'd love to hear. I mean, it's got to be, if not the same, even more intense, because now you don't have the skates. It's all about endurance and speed. Is that pretty accurate statement?
Yeah. It's pretty phenomenal. You watch guys like Josh Courier and Zach Courier. Those guys, like Zach, sometimes just he's all over the field. He's running. He's playing two-way midi, and seems like he covers more ground than anybody. But he's running for the entire 60 minutes of the game, and it's just exhausting watching him play. And for me, even when I get stuck on defense, you're running back, and it's kind of like it's a ton of running, but it's again, that's probably similar to soccer, where you look at some of those athletes that have unbelievable cardio, and it can be a long game if you're turning the ball over. We always say if you score, you get to walk off. Otherwise, it's going to be a long shift for you.
Oh, that's great. Yeah, I think it's exciting to see. I know that we have a team text, and I think I shared with before we started the call, but some of the highlights of your game. I think, was it yesterday or 2 days ago?
Yeah, on Saturday. Yeah.
Yeah, it was on, I guess, NBC starting to air some of the games. That's got to be exciting for you. So you got people in Canada that can actually find a way to watch you play, I'm assuming.
Yeah, it's been awesome, actually. So it was on NBC 2 years ago, and then they've started to deal with ESPN. So ESPN does the indoor and the outdoor league. So in Canada, that's TSN, so you can watch all the games. But it's been on ESPN 1, 2, ESPNU, and then on the app you can watch all the games. So it's been good, and it's helping grow the game, because we got a ton more regions playing it now. You look at Boise, Idaho, that probably 10 years ago had never even seen lacrosse, and those areas are kind of exploding all the way down the coast from Oregon to California, and it's actually getting huge in Texas now. I think a lot of people with all the concussion injuries and neck injuries in football, a lot of these kids are going, well, I don't think I'm going to the NFL, so the risk, worth risking getting my head smashed in by somebody twice the size of me if I can play another sport and possibly get, a scholarship or something like that. So it's kind of growing like wild out there in Texas.
Are you starting to see some of these collegiate athletes with the aspirations to play? Is that kind of the path? Do they ever take kids, that don't play college lacrosse in the pros?
Yeah. So for the most part, that'd be the Canadians that didn't get the secondary education, and they'll play and try to go straight to the NLL. But again, there's no money there like the NHL or NBA. So going to school is kind of the smart route, and most of the American kids are now starting to play a bit more in the NLL, which is the indoor. It's growing quite a bit, and then a lot of them that have seen the PLL. There's quite a few kids coming out of the NCAA now playing in the PLL. So it's the competition is pretty high. That's why I gotta stay healthy, and there's always somebody younger and more athletic coming after a spot. So it's important to keep the conditioning up, and the less I can get injured and keep these nagging injuries away, the better.
Well, hopefully then you didn't share this the tonight's Q&A with any of your older guys in the league. You say you're old, 30, you're like a kid, but we're so glad that you were able to find the PRS and ARPneuro to help you extend your career and get through some of these nagging injuries. I mean, it's amazing what you guys as professional athletes go through, both physically and mentally. We love to hear these stories as much as anybody, just because, to see what this technology is capable of doing for professional athletes like yourself. But more importantly, I'm seeing it every day with weekend warriors, guys just wanting to get back on the pickle or play golf. It is absolutely amazing to see. As a matter of fact, I think we just had one client go, how is this not in every household in America, for the injuries? When you look at just the pure cost associated with healthcare and trying to be healthy and active, that's the whole key to life, right? And success of, just movement. When you can't move, it's amazing what and when you're looking down the barrel of a surgery, if there's this technology which you came across that can help, fantastic. So I think we're about wrapping up here, Jake. Do you have any other questions? I mean, I have a list of 100 more questions, so we're going to have to absolutely ask Wes back at a future date. But
100%, I think we should continue this on. I know it's way past your bedtime, Matt, and you've been absolutely great, Wes. So yeah, thank you so much for being on.
Oh no, I appreciate you guys having me on. And again, I'm ecstatic that I was able to, get this now. I'm sure a lot of guys saying they wish they had this kind of stuff 5 years ago, but it's something that, again, it's the time every time I bring it out or somebody uses it, they're trying to get one, or they're trying to take mine.
I love it.
All the teammates. So yeah,
that's good stuff. And before we go, it sounds like you do some camps in San Diego. Is that correct? Summer camps for youth?
Yeah. We run like an entire youth program. So we have ages from like 5 and 6 all the way up to a college team for indoor. So we're always traveling to tournaments and doing we've got practice kind of all summer, and I'll help out with the field lacrosse side of it too. A friend that owns GWV, it's called, and that's kind of the younger kids too. So you're helping, trying to get those kids kind of playing at the next level, and hopefully get them scholarships in college and playing professionally, which would be pretty cool. So it's probably coach almost over 300 kids throughout the year, which is a lot of fun. But
is there a plug to a website or something if somebody that's on today, is interested in participating in those camps that they can go to?
Yeah, and we do a summer camp that's kind of for everybody, and that's on the Junior Seals lacrosse website, so juniorsealslax.com, and you can find it on the San Diego Seals website too, if you check that out. If you've got kids that want to get out and try lacrosse for the first time. We've got a good summer camp coming up this summer.
Well, hopefully the kids were on this call and not the parents, because when they're hearing about broken noses and all this other stuff, I mean, to me, I think golf is a pretty good sport. Every once in a while, somebody's going to shank one and you might get hit, but I guarantee you're not breaking many noses. But obviously, really appreciate your time, Wes. Fantastic Q&A. So glad that you spent an hour with us, and really wish you all the best.